the beginning, and
Sure.
any information that you could share about Baker Act that you can tell us that it's kind of concerning, if you will.
Okay, so we have a couple of what we call involuntary commitment statutes on the books here in Florida, and they basically allow certain agents or agencies to take control of somebody and place them into a receiving facility, and they sort of set out, what the parameters are, what the requirements are, and the timelines are. So, the Baker Act is one of them. The Baker Act, which is Chapter 394, is an involuntary commitment statute. It's designed for emergency stabilization. It's not a treatment statute. And the whole purpose is to allow, it could be law enforcement, it could be a licensed clinician, it could be an emergency room doctor, to basically have somebody placed in a county facility designated as a Baker Act receiving facility where they can be stabilized for a period of up to 72 hours. And if the facility believes that 72 hours is not long enough, in other words, they need more time to stabilize, then they can go to court and they can file what's known as a petition for involuntary placement and ask a judge to conduct a hearing and to decide if the person, needs more time, needs more stabilization. So that's what the Baker Act is intended for. That's what it's designed for.
How about for children now, and as far as getting the parents' permission? It seems like a lot of parents are coming to you complaining about something. If you would like to share.
Sure. So look, the thing with the Baker Act, filings under the Baker Act, the Marchman Act, they're all confidential in nature. They're considered part of your medical file. And so what tends to happen with the Baker Act, even with minors, okay, is that, young boys and girls are getting Baker Acted. They're getting taken to facilities. A lot of the time they're being, handcuffed and taken by law enforcement officers to these facilities. And the parents don't find out about it until it's already happened. And they get a call either from the facility, who's supposed to notify them, or they get a call from, a school counselor who says, listen, we had a problem here and we had to Baker Act your child. And now the parents are caught completely unaware. They're in shock. In all likelihood, they don't know what the Baker Act is. They don't even know where their child is. And they don't know who to turn to. They don't know what to do. They do know their child's not coming home that night. And that's very, very frightening for parents, especially in the times that we live in. They're dealing with their children who may not have been to school for quite a period of time. And children are, just like adults, are really having a tough time now. Mm-hmm. And so it's frightening for the parents, and it's frightening for the children too.
Is this legal?
Well, statutorily, yes. It's a legal framework that allows us to, stabilize even a minor.
But not tell their parents about it?
Well, they're supposed to tell the parents. What tends to happen is that if the school counselor thinks there's an issue, and I'm not singling out school counselors, but that's typically what happens. The school counselor hears from a child there's a problem. School counselor, calls 911, the police come, and then the parents find out about it after the fact. Instead of telling the parents, look, we have a problem with the child, can we address it? And so I think what's happening is the parents feel, and rightly so, that they should at least be told what's happening to the child. Don't call us after the fact and tell us it's been done, because now, we're not able to help our child. Our child has been basically taken from us, and the child doesn't know why, and we don't know why. And so we can't even address the issue that's caused all this, and so, that's where the abuse can start to happen.
In this case study in question here, they found that Palm Beach County School District have had cases, the children as young as 5?
Yep, I've had calls from parents, of that age, and it's frightening to think that a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, 7-year-old even, could potentially meet criteria, where they're, potentially.
Sorry about
that. All right. Somebody's made a determination, sort of on-the-spot decision, that, they need to be committed, right? They need to be taken from their parents, that they're somehow an immediate danger to themselves or somebody else. A 5-year-old, that's frightening, it really is.
There's a lot of frightening details in this case study that we unveiled in March. This time around, we get this in response, I believe, after several reports about how it seems like they're kind of overdoing it with the Baker Act, if you will. But what do you determine? What did you get from this recent release?
Yeah, I read it. I've read it a couple of times, and I think what the school board has acknowledged is a couple things. Number one, that we're definitely having a problem with overuse and abuse of the Baker Act. And number two, that there are a lot of children out there who need help, okay? They need someone to turn to. And, typically when they're going to speak to a school counselor, it's because they don't feel comfortable talking to mom and dad, and they feel like, the school counselor is a safe zone where they can really sort of tell, somebody what's going on here. And the school board has acknowledged the fact that there are a lot of children who need to be able to go and talk to somebody, and without the fear that, the police are going to come by and take them away. Because if children don't feel they have a safe zone, who are they going to tell? And, mental health, anxiety, depression, these things, they get worse with time. And if you can't talk to somebody about it, especially as a child who, isn't able to even comprehend why they're having these feelings, I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster.
Right.
It really is. So I think the school board has acknowledged we have a problem, that children need help, and that we need to make more resources available for children. Because, going from a child complaining to a school counselor, they have they're having issues, and then they go from there, down to a Baker Act facility, handcuffs. I mean, there has to be middle ground here, and I think what the school board has done, when I read this, is they're like, look, we need to make more resources available, and I think that's what they're trying to do. And the other thing that was really that was really noteworthy here was it looks like they're trying to make an effort to educate the professionals that are making these Baker Act decisions on what the Baker Act really is, and when to use it, and when it's appropriate, and what the criteria are. If you ask a child, have you ever thought about hurting yourself, and they say yes, that's not criteria. Now, if the child is standing there with a weapon and is like, yeah, I'm going to do something, and I'm going to do it right now, okay, that's a different scenario. But just because a child has said that doesn't mean to say they need to be Baker Acted. In fact, what it means to say is they need help, and they want someone to talk to, and they've come to you as the counselor to have that conversation. And I think that's what this document sort of acknowledges.
What would you like to tell parents tonight who may be watching that, they are afraid that the school is kind of overusing this, but it seems like they have done some different, like they want to use that as a last resort. What would you like to tell parents when they send their kids to school and who may have concerns for their child's mental health?
Yeah, I think a couple things. Number one, I don't think the child should feel, uncomfortable going to talk to the school counselor, okay? But maybe more important than that, parents need to have that conversation with their children and say, look, if there's something that's bothering you, okay, let's talk. I think children need to feel safe, okay? And perhaps, the parents have to say to the child, look, it's okay if you're not feeling good, if you're having issues, if you're not sleeping at night, if you're not eating, if you're off your food or things of that nature, it's okay to come and talk to us. And I think the parents, like I've spoken to so many parents over the years.
Right, what's causing kids stress these days?
Well, I think the number one thing is the fact that they're not with their friends in school. They don't have that, that contact, I mean, we're, as human beings, we're designed to socially interact, and a child, especially during those formative years, needs to be with other children. They need to learn social skills. They need to have friends. They need to feel loved. They need to feel safe. And so, when you take that away and all they have is Facebook, which is an open cesspool potentially for bullying and things of that nature, it's a recipe for disaster. But I think that, the parents need to say to the children, look, you can come and talk to us. But also the parents, moms and dads tell me when I ask them, how do you know your child's having an issue? They say, I just know. I just know. And you know what? They do. Who knows better than the parents, right? The parents, especially mom, right? I've got my mom even knows. She's a little older, but she's 78 years old, God bless her, okay? I'm 54. She knows when I'm having a bad day. She can feel it, right? Parents know when their child's having a problem. And if they look for the signs, right? If your child is spending an inordinate amount of time in their room, cutting themselves off, right? If their eating habits have changed, things of that nature, things that parents would notice, then yeah, they need to be able to go to the child and say, look, you've been in your room for the last 2 days, we haven't seen you, you're not speaking to us, what's going on? What can we do to help you? And try to get involved, I mean, look, it's great to have the school counselors, and I think the school board is going to have more of these professionals involved, but parents have to, maybe be the first step in that, in getting their children some help, so that the state doesn't step in and start taking children, away from their parents, even if it's temporarily, because it's causing, irreparable damage.
I think my last question would be, and I think you touched on it already, just what do you hope to see in our schools to help children with these mental health issues?
Yeah, I think that I think the counselors, need to be aware that, we're now going to have potentially a whole generation of children who have been cut off from just from the social environment they experienced in school, and to be maybe just a little bit more sensitive to these things. I'm sure that, based on what I've read here, that they're going to be. And, and also, understand that, there's a middle ground here. It doesn't have to be do nothing or do the Baker Act, right? And so that middle ground is where we can help children, because you take a child, handcuff him, place him in the back of a police car, and march him down to the local, Baker Act facility. I mean, if you thought the child was suffering from anxiety, depression before, wait till they get Baker Acted. And I have conversations with adults who tell me how traumatic it was. Can you only imagine what it would do to a
Can you
child?
describe how traumatic it is? What's that process like? We're literally put in handcuffs.
Yeah, so we're getting children who are being handcuffed, hands behind the back, sometimes placed in the back of a police car. I mean, it's almost like they're taking the perp walk, right? As a prosecutor, you hear about, people getting arrested, they get placed in a police car, and they get taken to the county jail. Well, the Baker Act facility, it's not the jail, but it's what we call a secure facility, meaning the doors lock and you're not getting out, okay? And they have security protocols in place so that you can't leave. And so when that, that door slams, that's traumatic. And I've heard the food's not so good in these facilities, right? I've heard of the facilities medicating children that didn't need to be medicated. I've heard of facilities depriving children of medication that they had been previously prescribed by their clinician, and they're denied access to their parents. They're there, they don't have clean clothes, they don't have a toothbrush. It's not in every case, but these are some of the things that I see. Okay, and this has to stop. It's not right.
Well, it's a whole other report. We gotta look
It's a whole,
into.
it's a whole other conversation.
What are we doing down